Where am I? The light is fading. The heat subsides, and this dry, scorching air finally turns cool. I feel the moisture returning to the leaf I'm hiding under. It's time to wake up. I slowly stretch out of my shell. First, one pair of tentacles, then the other. The world around me is a blur of huge dark spots and smells. It smells like damp earth. It smells like fresh greens. Feel hunger. My body is one continuous muscle, and it begins to move forward, slowly, rhythmically. Beneath me, I leave a wet, slippery trail. Every movement is an effort, but the moisture makes it smooth on our passes. I haven't crawled very far, maybe a couple of meters. There's a dark silhouette ahead. I touch it with my lower tentacles. The smell is juicy, fresh. I press my mouth against it and begin to scrape. Crunch, crunch, crunch. The taste of moist greenery fills me. I eat for a long time, unhurriedly. Where do I have to rush? The whole night is ahead. The world around rustles, crackles. Someone runs past, shaking the stem. I freeze. I retract my tentacles. Danger. The vibration fades. I stretch back out and continue eating. 2 more hours have passed. My body has grown heavy, but there is still plenty of moisture. I crawl along rough bark, but my mucus smooths out all the unevenness. Suddenly, coming towards me, a different smell. Fresh, familiar, of my own kind. Another snail is crawling towards me. We touch tentacles. I feel her. She feels me. It's a slow, strange dance in the dark. Then we press tightly against each other. I feel a sharp, piercing prick in my side, and I do the same, stabbing my dart into her. It is necessary for future offspring. It is an impulse impossible to resist. We part, each going our own way. The night continues. I crawl downward, toward the damp earth. About 9 hours of my active life have passed. The light returns. The dark spots become too bright. The warmth begins to burn. The moisture evaporates quickly. It's time to hide. I crawl under a large stone where the earth still holds the night's dampness. I pull my body into my shell, pressing tightly against the cool stone. I close myself off from this bright, dry world. But I won't fall into a deep sleep until night. I fall asleep for only 20 minutes. I wake up. I poke my tentacles out slightly. Outside, it is still stuffy and dry. I hide again and slip into a doze. This is how my whole day will pass. In short, anxious bursts of sleep and waking, until I finally feel the evening coolness. Pregnancy 2 weeks have passed since that night. It's heavy inside. This heaviness has been building for days, and now the instinct is overwhelming. I wake up earlier than usual. I don't want to eat. I need to go down. I descend from the plant to the damp earth. I find a patch where the soil is loose and smells of wet decay. I start to dig no tweet pows. I don't have them. I dig with my head. I slowly and stubbornly screw myself into the ground. It is hard. It is exhausting. 1 hour passes, then a second, a third. My shell is half hidden in the soil. I have dug the perfect hole, and now I begin to release this heaviness. One by one, small slippery spheres fall into the darkness of the hole. There are many of them. Dozens. The process takes hours. I feel incredible fatigue. When it's all over, I just as slowly scrape the earth back. The heaviness is gone. There is only emptiness and a desire to hide. I crawl away from this place. My mission is accomplished. The instinct has faded, and I will never return to these eggs. Winter, but sometimes conditions change radically. The air becomes dry and cold. My mucus thickens. Moving becomes unbearably hard. There is no food. The smells have vanished. My instinct screams, "Hide or you will die." I find a deep crevice under a thick tree root. I wedge myself in there as deeply as I possibly can. I pull my body into my shell, further and further, and then I secrete a special, thick fluid. It hardens in the air, turning into a solid door, tightly sealing the entrance to my home. Total darkness. My heart slows down. One beat. A long pause. Another beat. I put my life on pause. My body is ready to wait. For months, if necessary. For years, if needed. I won't feel the time. I will only wake up when the spring meltwater washes away my door from the outside. Predator. But what if the night doesn't go according to plan? I am crawling along my wet trail, looking for food, but suddenly a different smell appears from behind. Not food, not a partner. It's the smell of a predator. She is following right on my trail. She is faster than me. I feel the vibration behind me. Panic. I try to crawl faster, secrete a sea of mucus, writhe. But I am a snail. My faster is still agonizingly slow. She catches up to me. I feel the touch of foreign tentacles. And then jaws. They sink into my soft body. I try to pull into my shell, to hide behind my armor. But she is long. Her snout penetrates right into my home after me. The pain is sharp, piercing, tearing. Darkness consumes me. My shell will remain here empty, and I will become someone else's energy. Terrarium one afternoon, while I was sleeping under a leaf in the garden. A huge shadow covered me. Thick, warm fingers of a giant tore me from the branch. In panic, I hid deep inside my shell. I was thrown into a dark, shaking box. I thought this was the end, but I woke up in a glass box. The light here is always soft. The air is always perfectly moist. The temperature never drops. There are no predators here, no birds. Instead of a long search for food, it just appears on its own. Huge chunks of sweet fruit and white powder that makes my shell as strong as stone. I don't need to be afraid. When the warm hands of the giants pick me up, I no longer hide in my shell. I know it is safe. This reality is devoid of freedom. But here I can live 5 times longer than out in the open. Zombie parasite. What if death comes not from the outside, but from within? An ordinary night. I find an appetizing piece of bird droppings on a leaf. It's an excellent source of microelements. I eat it, but there were eggs inside. Days pass. I feel my body stop obeying me. My tentacles swell. They become huge, pulsating, covered in bright yellow and green stripes. My survival instinct is broken. Instead of hiding in the shade, an alien will forces me to climb the highest stem, right under the scorching sun, right out in the open. My tentacles pulsate like 2 fat caterpillars. It's a signal. A bird's shadow falls from above. It pecks off my tentacles. The parasite cycle will continue in the sky, while my story ends here, on a sunlit leaf. Giant's boots, sometimes it all ends banally. And quickly, early morning after heavy rain, I am crawling across a hard, smooth, gray surface. There is no grass here, but plenty of moisture. Suddenly, the surface begins to tremble. Rhythmic thuds grow louder and louder. A gigantic black wall with deep treads rises above me. It descends straight toward me. I don't even have time to retract my tentacles. An instantaneous, deafening crunch of Michelin. The light goes out forever. 0 gravity. I wake up, but everything is wrong. There is no up. There is no down. Inside my head there are tiny stones that always press downward, telling me where the ground is. But right now they are floating. I am not falling, but I feel an endless fall. The giants placed me in a transparent box and sent me to a place with no gravity to space. I extend my tentacles, trying to stick to a surface. I can crawl, but my body doesn't understand why the shell is no longer heavy. It's confusing, but I still continue to look for food. Birth. But how did this life even begin? Darkness. Cramped space. Moisture. I wake up inside a tiny, tight sphere underground. I need to get out. I rub against the walls, using my tiny mouth grater. The shell gives way. I tumble out into the damp earth. My shell on my back is soft as jelly. Any grain of sand could pierce it. I feel a ravenous hunger. Nearby lies the shell I just climbed out of. I eat it. But that's not enough. My shell demands calcium right now. There's another sphere next to me. Something is moving inside. Hunger is stronger. I gnaw through this fear and eat what's inside. This isn't cruelty. This is the survival instinct. It's the only way I'll get a chance to grow strong. Now I have the strength to push my way up to the light. The world outside is vast and terrifying. Every bird, every frog seems deadly. I learned to hide at the very bottom, near the roots, feeding on decay. Weeks of fear and constant searching for food pass. My soft shell becomes covered in hard calcium. Whirl by whirl, I grow. I become stronger. And then comes that very night when, for the first time, I don't hide at the bottom, but confidently crawl up a stem for a juicy leaf. The very night with which we began this story. Old age, and how will it all end if predators, droughts, and giant boots pass me by? About 1,000 nights have passed. Almost 3 years of continuous cycles of sleep and waking since that very first trip up. My shell is now huge, heavy, covered in deep white scratches and chips. Moving has become incredibly difficult. Producing mucus is a luxury that takes up too much strength. I no longer climb tall stems for young green leaves. It's dangerous there, and I am too heavy. I stay at the bottom once again. I eat what has fallen to the ground. Rotted leaves, overripe, crushed fruits. It's soft. It's easy to scrape. I feel the strength leaving me. Another morning. The light burns. I find a small hollow under a damp leaf. I pull myself into my shell. Slowly. My heart beats less and less. I stop. I will never wake up again. My soft body will begin to dry out. And invisible soil bacteria and microorganisms will immediately get to work on it. In a few weeks, nothing will be left of me but an empty shell. Autumn rains will slowly wash it away, drop by drop, returning my calcium deep into the soil. And one day, these minerals will be absorbed by the roots of the very plant I once slept on. I have traveled the whole path. It was a long, good life.
The meaning of life. What you have just lived through are the pure sensations of reality. Now let's break down how this works from a biological perspective. Let's start with how a snail eats. It doesn't bite off food. Hidden in its mouth is a radula, a kind of grater containing about 14,000 microscopic teeth. These teeth work like a conveyor belt, ruthlessly scraping away layer by layer. The snail's movement is a miracle of engineering. It crawls on one giant muscular foot, but to avoid grinding itself into powder, it secretes mucus. This is its personal liquid asphalt, which it paves right in front of itself. This mucus is so thick and protective that a snail can crawl along the edge of a knife without cutting itself. An interesting anatomical fact: millions of years ago, the snail's shell twisted into a spiral to become more compact. But along with the shell, the internal organs twisted as well. Therefore, the digestive tract makes a loop, and the excretory opening is located not at the back, but right above the head at the very edge of the shell. The snail does its business right on the go. Its digestion is continuous. Its excrement looks like a long, thin string that trails behind it and breaks off in pieces. Moreover, this string always takes on the color of its food. Eat a carrot, the string will be bright orange. Eat lettuce, green. And now about the strangest thing: romance and injections. Snails are hermaphrodites. Every individual possesses both male and female reproductive organs. When they meet and press against each other, a mutual injection occurs. They stab each other with love darts, sharp calcium needles. This is not a weapon. These darts contain special hormones that physiologically increase the chances of the genetic material taking hold. Without this injection, the process would be ineffective. At the very beginning of life, you felt cruelty, eating a sibling. A newborn's soft shell is defenseless. To strengthen it, an immediate dose of calcium is required. If its own shell is not enough, neighboring unhatched eggs are used. Whoever hatches first gets the evolutionary chance at life. When winter or drought arrives, the snail secretes a hard lid out of mucus, an epiphragm. It seals itself inside the shell and falls into deep, suspended animation, estivation, hibernation. Its heart rate drops to a minimum. A human can live without water for 3 days and without food for about 3 weeks. A snail, thanks to this energy-saving mechanism, is capable of sleeping without a drop of water or a crumb of food from 6 months to 4 years. In history, there are cases where a snail glued to a museum display came back to life years later, the moment it was wedded, and here lies an incredible biological fact. Suspended animation almost completely halts cellular aging. That is, if a snail is destined to live 5 years of active life, and it sleeps through a drought for 4 years, its biological clock is essentially on pause. Upon waking, it will still be able to live its allotted years. What is the meaning of a snail's life? Why are they needed in nature? Imagine that snails disappeared. A huge number of birds, toads, hedgehogs, and insects would lose their basic food. The food chain would collapse. But most importantly, recycling would stop. Young snails eat fresh plants, but old snails are trash recycling factories. They eat rotting organic matter, fallen leaves, dead plants, processing them into humus, the most fertile part of the soil. The snail takes what has outlived its usefulness and turns it into building material for new forests. They are the perfect, slow, inevitable engines of life's rebirth on Earth. Author's note: snails are among the oldest inhabitants of land. They appeared about 500 million years ago, long before the first dinosaurs. Their biological design, the spiral shell and gliding foot, turned out to be so perfect that they have survived to this day practically unchanged. Nature found an ideal and decided not to touch it. The sizes of snails in the world boggle the mind. Somewhere in the humid forests of Africa lives the giant Achatina, Lisa Achatina fulica. Its shell can reach 30 centimeters in length, and it can weigh almost a kilogram, the size of a cat. At the other extreme is the tiny Acmella nana snail from the island of Borneo. Its shell is only 0.7 millimeters. It is smaller than a grain of sand and can easily pass through the eye of a needle. But the microworld also hides macabre secrets. We are used to thinking that snails are herbivorous slow movers. Meet the rosy wolf snail, Euglandina rosea. This is a ruthless, fast predator that feeds on other snails, tracking them down by their slime trail. Where can it be found today? Originally, it lived only in the subtropics of the USA, Florida, Georgia, Texas. But in the 1950s, humans made a fatal mistake. They decided to use it as a biological weapon and spread it around the world to fight pests. Today, this killer snail can be found in the wild in numerous regions: Hawaii, Japan, India, Madagascar, Sri Lanka, the Bahamas, and French Polynesia. Everywhere humans brought it, an ecological catastrophe began. It ignored the pests and ruthlessly devoured dozens of the rarest native snail species, wiping them off the face of the earth forever. Have snails been to space as we imagine? Yes! Starting in 1985, land snails have been repeatedly sent into orbit, including to the Mir space station and the ISS. Scientists studied how their organ of balance, statocyst, reacts to weightlessness, because it is very similar to the human vestibular system. By the way, speaking of snail relatives, slugs. Slugs are the same gastropod mollusks, except in the process of evolution, they gave up their heavy shell for the sake of maneuverability. There are no interspecies romances between snails and slugs. They simply share territory. And among them, there are predators too. The huge leopard slug is not averse to snacking on a smaller relative. And now, let's answer the silly but very common questions we ask when looking at animals through the prism of ourselves. Can a snail cough or sneeze? No, it has no lungs, diaphragm, or airways as we understand them. It breathes through a lung hole, a pneumostom, which leads into a special cavity. There is no pressure there to sneeze. Does a snail feel pain? It feels damage. If you prick it, it will instantly retract its tentacles or hide in its shell. This is a basic self-preservation reflex, nociception. But its nervous system consists of several ganglion nodes. It does not have a complex brain, so it does not experience emotional suffering or conscious pain the way we feel it. What will happen if a snail falls into water? Can it lay eggs there? A land snail will drown. It has no gills, it breathes atmospheric air through a breathing hole. pneumostome. If thrown into a deep puddle, it will instinctively hide in its shell and hold its breath for a couple of hours, but then it will suffocate. It will never lay eggs in water either. They would suffocate and rot in the water. They strictly need moist, loose soil with access to oxygen. And what happens if you pour salt, pepper, or flour around it? These are deadly barriers. Salt and sugar kill the snail instantly. Due to the process of osmosis, they literally suck all the water out of its soft body through the skin. The mucus begins to bubble, and the snail dies of excruciating dehydration. Hot sauce or pepper, capsaicin, will cause a severe chemical burn, as the snail's entire skin is one continuous exposed receptor. Flour acts differently. It mixes with the mucus and turns into a thick, sticky dough. The snail becomes firmly glued to the spot and can suffocate if this mass blocks its breathing hole. Do snails get sick? Absolutely. They can suffer from parasites, nematodes, and mites. Their shell can be affected by fungi or start flaking from a lack of calcium. And finally, humans and the snail. To us, they are completely harmless. They don't bite hard enough to break the skin. Their teeth are just a gentle grater against a human finger. In France and other countries, they are specially bred on farms for food, the famous escargot. But if you decide to get a snail as a pet, for example, a giant achatina, be prepared for surprises. Remember that colored string of excrement? A snail eats an incredible amount, means it defecates practically non-stop. These strings will be everywhere. The terrarium will have to be cleaned almost every day, wiping the glass and removing leftover food. Otherwise, mold and parasites will instantly breed inside, causing the pet to get sick and die. In the wild, where there are plenty of predators and droughts, they live only 2 to 5 years. But in the ideal conditions of a home terrarium, with the right humidity and calcium supplements, some species live up to 10 to 15 years, and in exceptional cases, records of over 20 years have been documented. It will not meet you at the door wagging its tail, but it will get used to the smell and warmth of your hands, stop hiding, and allow you to observe its amazing, slow but endlessly important life.